This might be one of Yorkshire's most iconic structures. In fact, I'll bet many of you watching this will instantly recognise it because you'll have been here. Others of you might not have visited before, but it's still going to look familiar to you. And it is, of course, the iconic Ribblehead Viaduct, built over 150 years ago with its 24 archways, still to this day carrying trains across the landscape. And in this video, we're going to do something a little bit different to what we normally do on this channel. We are going to go and check out the viaduct up close, learn a little bit about its story. But because this is also going to be the last video of the year on this channel, I'm also going to be answering a bunch of your questions, recently submitted by viewers of these videos through YouTube. And we'll have a little look ahead and see what might be coming for 2026. So come along with me and let's go and check it out. Now, I've just hopped off the train here at Ribblehead Station. Ribblehead, one of the more self-explanatory names of places around the area and around the country. Slightly less of a mystery than the likes of Upper Thong, Thornton le Beans, Fingering Hoe, all of which are real places. Ribblehead, though, I can tell you, is home to the head of the River Ribble. It flows southwards from here, curving around to the west, eventually passing through Lancashire and emerging out of the Irish Sea. And it's a very popular destination for tourists and hikers alike, for a load of reasons, to be honest. This is one of them, the viaduct, but we're also surrounded by the nearby Yorkshire Three Peaks. Ahead of us, somewhere in the distance, we've got Whernside. Over here we've got Ingleborough, and somewhere further south, back towards a place called Settle, we've got the third peak, Pen y Ghent. And many people visit the area to take on the Yorkshire Three Peaks Challenge, to complete all three in a single day. Often taking, for many people, around 10-12 hours, maybe longer, maybe shorter, depends on who you are, of course. Not only that, we've got a ton of other stuff nearby. Loads of caves in the area if you're into that kind of thing. And if you're looking for a more relaxing or low energy visit, you can get the train here and just nip in to the nearby Station Inn. First licensed in, testing my memory again, 1879. I'm confident enough that I'm not going to check my phone on that, but tell me if I'm wrong. Now, there are many viaducts around the country, but very rarely do they span this length and stand at this size. Construction on this one started in 1869 and took around 5 years to complete. It was built as part of the Settle-Carlisle Railway, a 72-mile stretch going from Settle, which I passed through today, slightly further south of here, all the way up north and slightly to the west to the city of Carlisle in the county of Cumbria. And as we get closer, there's a little detail within there, hidden somewhere, that I want you to try and look out for. See if you can spot something that stands out. I'll say no more for now, but I will let you know what I'm talking about when we get a bit closer. A few people, when they first see this, think of Harry Potter, and they think that maybe this was the place used in the films. An easy mistake to make, but this is a different viaduct. That one is Glenfinnan Viaduct in Scotland. Very similar in size though, in many ways. 21 arches in Glenfinnan Viaduct and 24 here. And it took over 2,000 men 5 years to construct. These men were called navvies, short for navigator. And they're a group of very tough, hard-working men who we've come across on the channel before when we, several months ago now, went to look at one of England's more decorative railway arches, let's say. A notorious group of people working intensely in brutal conditions and dangerous conditions. So much so, in fact, that over 100 men died during the construction of this viaduct. It's something I was trying to find more details on in terms of numbers and causes of death, but I couldn't find quite what I was looking for. The causes of death typically just listed as kind of workplace incidents, fights, and outbreaks of smallpox. Fighting, another thing that I've come across before when reading about the navvies. As much as their reputation of hard work and incredible strength precedes them, so does their ability to knock back the beers and in some cases get into some very violent fights and brawls. But in this case, I don't know how many of the 100 plus deaths were caused by fighting. I would guess not that many, surely. General workplace accidents and the smallpox outbreaks, I'm going to presume much more common causes of death. Now, this is probably a good time to try and spot this unique element. I'm trying really not to give it away here. Maybe I'm being a bit too vague though. I'll give you a clue in a second. 32 meters tall from what I've read, 400 meters long, and the foundations around 7.5 meters deep. Now before we go underneath and have a bit of a closer look, I'm going to show you what I was talking about. Let's just quickly count some of these arches and keep a close eye on them as we go through them. Tell me which one looks different. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Anything strange yet? Number 5. Nothing too wild. And then number 6. You might have noticed, and you can probably see now that we're side by side, this one is way thicker than all of the others. And it's because every 6th column, every 6th pillar is significantly wider, basically to act as a fail-safe. In case any of these ever suffer significant structural damage or collapse, these thicker ones are going to be there to keep the viaduct standing. So this is the view from underneath. And if I'd have stayed on the train instead of hopping off here at Ribblehead, I would have carried on straight over the top. I think there is a plaque down here as well. We'll have a look before we carry on with our journey. This thing used to be called the Moss Viaduct. Kind of a funny sounding name. More commonly these days, known by pretty much everybody as Ribblehead Viaduct. But Moss is the name of the land that the viaduct carries the trains over. And there was a chance at one point in time that it was going to be closed down. After increasing repair and maintenance cost, there was a proposal to shut the viaduct, which would have led to a very different video in an alternate timeline for us today. Because it would have been, we would have been able to walk over it, and it's probably taken over by nature a bit more and, I don't know, maybe collapsed in some parts. Luckily though, there was a lot of backlash to those plans, and for various reasons, it never happened. These two dates, 1875, I've just realised, I found the wrong date in my research, 1869. I found a lot of sources for that as well, that's weird. But I'll take the loss. 1870 to 1875. And 1991, not sure what's happened here, but this was the year, I believe, of significant repairs. Fully restored in 3 stages between 88 and 91, with help from many different organisations. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I'm very glad that it is still running. And these days it's a very popular, well-travelled route. We've got, like I mentioned, many people coming on the train to visit the area, but you can also these days go from Carlisle all the way down to Leeds, another major city in the north. So it's a really useful line. I've got a feeling that that might be Ingleborough, covered in fog and cloud. Now this is where the video is going to be a little bit different to usual. Since it's the very last one of the year, I thought I'd put a post out recently on my YouTube community tab and see if there was anything some of you might want to know. And I got quite a few questions coming in. So we're going to go through those. I'm going to tell you everything you've asked for, including some things I think some YouTubers might not share. And while we do that, we're going to be walking around here, eventually coming back to the viaduct from the other side. And we should see some pretty great scenery and interesting things on the way. Now the first question comes from Yankee Tyke, who says, I've been watching you for months and I don't even know your name, so start with that. That's a fair point. So my real name is Jack. Not a secret, it just doesn't often crop up in the videos. And to be honest, in hindsight, if I'd planned all along to be making these types of videos, I might have gone with a different channel name. Northern Introvert's an alias I've been using for a lot of years for various creative projects, and it's just kind of steadily evolved. But it doesn't really give away any kind of clue as to what kind of videos I make. But what can you do? Next up, we've got a few people who asked about similar things. Steve, Victoria and K-Bubs Travel all wanting to know about why I started the channel and ended up making videos about these kinds of subjects. I'll get to their secondary questions in a moment as well. And the truth is, it's a mixture of kind of planning, personal goals and accident. A long time ago, and some of you will have seen this as well, there are some older music videos on this channel. And Northern Introvert was the alias I was using to work on music projects, which might seem kind of far from what I'm doing today. And it's because over time, the types of things I was making just steadily evolved. When TikTok came out and short form video started to become popular, I started looking at other ways to promote music, be creative with music. And so I was making a lot of short form content just talking about music. Music news, things that I thought was interesting about music in general. And those kind of videos did okay, but they got to a point where I realized there's a bit of a ceiling there, for me at least. And one of my goals that's always persisted through, oh dear. What's happening? You're right now. One of those goals that's always persisted through all of these versions is that I've wanted to be able to do some kind of creative work full-time to get a full-time income from it. So at that point, I decided to keep making music-related content, but to take it outdoors. And that was when I bought my first camera. And instead of just chatting about music and music things, I was going out to historical music venues, sometimes abandoned, closed down music venues, anything that had an interesting story behind it, to explore it in person. And long story short, I eventually got to the same stage with that as well. According to OS Maps, this is called Winter Scales Beck. What a view. Fast forward a little bit further, and yeah, like I say, I hit the same point, a little bit of what I felt was the ceiling. And I felt like that was probably due to me restricting my topics to just music. For me at least, it wasn't really working well enough. And it's a bit of a cliche story, but I was on the edge of just saying, you know what, I've tried loads of things. It's just not really something I can make work. Maybe it's not the best fit for me. And just as I was at that point, I came across an interesting story about Haworth, a village in West Yorkshire. It's got quite a dark history, that place. And I made a very short 1-minute video, I think it was, titled Britain's Deadliest Town. Or village, because it is a village. Britain's Deadliest Village, it must have been. And it did like 1 million plus views. And I just got enough of a glimpse of maybe there's another opportunity here. And to cut a long story short, that was how I eventually got on this path and ended up where I am today. So a combination of planning, experimentation, and let's face it, some chance and good luck. Steve did also ask, how many animals have you narrowly escaped being trampled by? And how many marriage proposals have you garnered? Have your posts garnered? On the animals, thankfully, none. Although actually, a couple of weeks ago, when I was filming the video at the Great Stone with the steps carved into it, I did have a run-in with a very aggressive dog. For anyone who's seen that video, there's a part, probably about halfway through, where I walked through some farmland, there was a horse over the field, and I passed by somebody's farmhouse. It was fine on the way out. On the way back though, I went through the gate, carried on walking, and I was kind of in the middle, like equidistant between the two gates, a few hundred meters either side. And I heard a dog barking. I thought, I didn't hear that on the way out, but it's quite a common thing, walking through public rights of way that cross through farmland. It's probably tied up. Kept barking, and it was getting louder. And then I heard, honestly, I'd describe it as galloping. Heard these footsteps just getting louder and louder and faster. So I turned around, and a pretty big black dog came bounding around the corner really noisily and just went straight for me. But I was so far from the next gate, I couldn't do anything. There was no way I was going to make it. So I just kind of stopped and I stood still and hoped for the best, because I've never really had a bad run-in with a farm dog, not in this country. They're normally just noisy and not particularly aggressive. I've never seen one attack a passerby. So I just stopped, turned around and looked at it, and thankfully it just sat there and carried on barking. Presumably just to get the attention of the owners in case I was somebody bad. And it turned out she was just taking out their dogs for a walk. There were some other ones on a lead. She was very friendly, she apologised. I said, it's all right, you know, it's your private land. But that did scare me a little bit, I won't lie. My heart rate was very much elevated at that point. As for the marriage proposals, big fat zeros so far. I assume you're referencing the folklore video from a few months back, where I crawled through the kind of gaps in the rocks. The story going that if you crawl through that, if I remember rightly, you will be married within 1 year. Something like that, it's been a while. But so far, no marriages, no marriage proposals on my side. K-Bubs Travel also had an interesting follow-up from that and said, when did you start to notice the success that helped to motivate you to keep at it? A lot of people play around with YouTube for years, myself included, and it can be hard to keep at it because life gets in the way. Most of us have got work and bills to pay, and when you aren't making money with YouTube, it can be discouraging. I can 100% relate to that, and I'm sure a lot of other people on YouTube and doing content creation on other platforms can as well. The beginning is especially difficult because it can take so much time and effort for very little, or sometimes it can feel like no reward. Not financial reward, but you know, you might put loads of hours into a video and nobody's watching it. Which kind of makes sense because it takes time to find your audience. Also, for most of us, myself included, at the beginning, we're not very good at making videos, let's be honest. At least I'll speak for myself only. And it's a skill that I'm still working on at this point. There's loads of ways I could improve my videos. So there's, the motivation and the financial side of it. The way that I got around that in terms of the money question is that I just made shorts for a really long time because I could work my previous job and still have enough time to produce one short per week. Most people, most content creators would say that's a bad idea. One short per week is nothing in a lot of people's eyes. But if nothing else, it was just good practice for me. And I was trying to make sure, at least to the best of my ability, that they were good quality and not just kind of throwaway videos, if you know what I mean. And as my viewers grew a little bit, I tried a couple of long form videos and they didn't really work out for me in the beginning, to be honest. I found myself in a similar position. I made 2, maybe 3. They weren't particularly great videos, but they still took a lot of time to make and a lot of effort. I was really passionate about them. And I found myself thinking, sitting there editing one day, why am I doing all this editing? I couldn't see them leading to that point where, this is working and there's a big audience. I just couldn't picture it. So I actually dropped long form videos, went back to doing just shorts again, and eventually made it back to doing long form, obviously. And one of the reasons that I came back to it and tried it again was because of people like you and all the other viewers on this channel. And that's where the motivation side of it comes in, because you really do have to push through a significant amount of time potentially where the amount of work massively outweighs the return. But I've been so fortunate on YouTube, I feel like, that my videos have found, even early on, even just a small bunch of people who've left really thoughtful and encouraging comments. You know, it's so easy online to just say nothing at all. I get that, I'm a bit of a lurker as well. I watch videos, if I start one I don't like, I'll probably just skip it, watch the next one. And then of course there are people who are very free, willing and motivated to leave just nasty comments. But I feel like I've been very lucky that so many of you have been really encouraging. Even when maybe the videos haven't been so great when I was just starting out, the level of kindness and encouragement has been one thing that has made a massive difference to my continuation of making videos for this channel. And there's no way that I would still be making them today if it wasn't for those comments. One last thing I will say though, to give it some perspective, for anyone else thinking of trying to get into content creation, or if you're already doing it, I don't see a lot of creators talking about this, but in terms of what I earn from content creation, at the moment, it's pretty much just about minimum wage. Now that's not a lot to live off, but I'm very pleased about it. I never thought I would get my channel to this size. It's not enough to do this forever or in the very long term, but it's certainly got things off the ground, and it's been enough the last few months to allow me to take a bit of a risk and do this full time, to try and sort of build it up. I just wanted to share that because I remember when my channel was fairly new, I might look at a channel with, I've got nearly 80,000 subscribers now, and think, whoa, that's huge. But the financial side of it isn't always quite what it seems. And in my case especially, most of my subscribers come from short form video. So if you take that into account, the amount of subscribers that I have that watch my, or came for my long form content, is actually about 35,000. So even at this level, there's a lot of big questions for me to figure out about how do I grow and sustain this? And how do I get it to a point where I can keep affording to do it full time without kind of surviving on the bare minimum, I suppose. Okay, I probably should tell you at this point where we're going. What route are we following? We've got a route plotted on OS Maps. Started over here at Ribblehead Station. We walked a few times underneath the viaduct there, just to the left of that green flag. And then we're kind of working our way through the farmland here. You might also notice, if we zoom out a bit, actually not so much at this level. Oh yeah, we zoom in. There are a lot of references to caves and shake holes around here. So if that is something you're interested in, this area is a great one to explore. Oh, have I going the wrong way? That is by chance, but that's a good job I looked. I was about to carry on straight forward. We need to go over there. That was some good luck. This is what the map's saying, at least. I do need to give a shout out today, by the way. There's no big advert incoming, I promise, but I do have to thank Tog24 for kitting me out with a load of winter gear. I've been wearing 3 of their layers today, and they're doing a good job. Plus, they're from Yorkshire, so added bonus. Okay, there's a few more questions. Hopefully these are interesting to at least some of you. So Victoria and Anne both asked something similar. Essentially, which other country, which other places would I like to eventually travel to if I could? That's a tough one. There are so many. I've been gradually collecting recommendations from viewers in different countries, just that in the hopes one day in the far future I get a chance to go there. Top ones right now. There's a few in Eastern Europe. There's one in Romania that I found recently. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of it, but I have not really researched it, but what it looks like along a river bank, there is a huge face carved into some kind of stone or rock face. I've only seen it visually. I haven't looked into it, but I'd never seen it before until recently, and it looked really interesting. Right now, that's the number one that kind of comes to mind. But I've got other pins in USA, Canada, places further over in Eastern Europe like Georgia. But obviously some of these trips would be substantial. Oh no. Uh-oh. Okay, here's the bad news. According to the map, we just have to walk straight through there. How deep do you reckon that is? Well, here's the good news. The good news is I've got waterproof shoes, but they only go up to my ankle. I've got waterproof socks. That's the end of the good news. I will regret this. What if it's really deep? What if it's really deep? Okay, I'm not at knee level yet. Okay, it's actually quite refreshing. Will I regret that in 10-15 minutes? Almost certainly. But the good news is, we're back on track. One other place that's just come to mind is somewhere called, I think it's the Ring of Brodgar, which is all the way super far up north. I think it's on the Orkneys, like the tips beyond the edges of mainland Scotland, I think. Again, haven't done any research on it, but it looks really interesting. That would be a big trip though. That's going to need a bit more time and a bit of funding, I suppose. Reasons for not walking through water in December can affect foot temperature. Also, just didn't really think through the fact that the socks are waterproof, but not beyond their highest point, obviously. So I think what's happened is they're now doing a very good job of keeping the water sealed inside. Okay, next up from Grizzly Gaz. Gaz has got a great YouTube channel, by the way. If you're into all things spooky, definitely check him out. And he's asked, where do you get your info from? Is it books, the internet, other people, or a mix of all the above? Not the most exciting answer, but it is, yeah, pretty much a mix. I've got probably close to 15, 20 books that I've bought over the last few months. Some of them have also been gifted to me by very kind friends. And on top of that, I'm frequently getting suggestions and recommendations through YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere pretty much. So I get quite a lot of help, and I use those to basically build a shortlist. I must have by now hundreds of pins on Google Maps. And for the last several months, I've kind of just been picking one each week that I personally think is interesting and a bit different. And after that, I just do a big deep dive on the subject to try and get a broad understanding so that I can then narrow it down into something simpler that I can tell on location. And that comes from a combination as well from the books, various online sources, YouTube as well, videos, anywhere I can find it really. Sheep ahead. Great spot for a picnic. Okay, next up we got JP. Are we expecting to see new guests or returning guests in upcoming videos? Two maybes, I suppose, is the truth, but probably yes. It's going to be mostly solo adventures on the way, because from what I can tell, more people seem to be interested in watching those. But I am still keen personally to do some collabs. I've got one sort of in the works, a couple of people on my target list, let's call it. Sounds a bit sinister, doesn't it? So I don't want to say any names in case they don't come through. But yes, probably, is the short answer. Let me know what you want to see though. If there are any particular guests you're interested, no matter how far-fetched it might seem, let me know, because I'll always give it a try. And just whether you like the collab videos or if you prefer the solo videos. It's quite tricky sometimes to get a good understanding of what people like to see. You do get a lot of data through YouTube and analytics on, all the comments and stuff, but there's always some patches missing. So any extra info, much appreciated. Okay, we are almost at the end of the Q&A. Taysom Berry says, this may be odd or not possible to answer, As somebody with disabilities, financial restrictions and no transport beyond buses, is there any way to see what day outings may be available to people like myself? Or maybe a brief mention in each video about potential for people with limited mobility. I think it's a great question, and you're definitely not alone there. I know that there are a fair few viewers who have mobility restrictions, and that's definitely something I can start doing. So what I will try and do moving forward, and we'll start in this video, probably put it at the end, keep it in the same place every time, is mentioning some kind of basic accessibility info. Public transport, terrain, wheelchair access, that sort of thing. And if you could do me a favour and just tell me each time I do that, or at least just the first couple of times maybe, is the information useful? Is there something missing or something that's actually I don't need to mention? And then hopefully over time we can figure out a useful summary that I can provide for every location. Okay, we got one more question and then I'll show you a route update and have a little chat about what might be next for the channel. Okay, last up, and I will double check when I get signal, make sure I've not missed any. We got Etched in Time and Blueberry, both interested in a trip to the James Herriot Museum. This came up some time ago now when I was in Haworth on a video, and I picked up a flyer for the James Herriot Museum, and to my own embarrassment said, "Who's James Herriot?" I have since been educated. And to answer your question, yes, definitely. It's on the list. I'll get in touch with them, see if we can hopefully go over and film something over there and explore the museum. Etched in Time also said, maybe a cooking video. I always love getting a new regional recipe or two. If you aren't comfortable with cooking, maybe that would be a good time to interview a local chef or baker. Regional recipes I actually find to be a really interesting subject, so I think that could be a great idea. Almost certainly not featuring myself as the main head chef, but yeah, I'm going to keep an eye out and have a look around for some particularly prominent local specialities, maybe long-standing food traditions, because I think that could make potentially for a really fun and interesting series of videos. I think that was the last question. As I said, I'll double check when I get some signal. A few of you also left some very kind messages and comments on there. Thank you so much for the nice words and the encouragement. As I mentioned earlier, it's not just fun to read, but it genuinely makes a difference and really sparks my motivation again, so thank you. Okay, let's navigate our way through this farm, and then as we start to approach the viaduct again, this time from the far side, I'll tell you a little bit about what I've got in mind for 2026. Oops. Oh. Solid escape. Okay, so 2026, next year, I've got a bit of a challenge ahead as to how to take the channel forward and make it sustainable. I'm going to have a think about it over the Christmas period. My general plan is to try and expand on what I've been doing the last few months. Specifically by just travelling further to begin with. The reason I say it's going to be a bit of a challenge is because the further I travel, the more it costs and the more time it takes. Meaning maybe the videos won't be released as frequently every week. So then you're kind of spending a bit more money. Less videos means less coming back. It's going to be an interesting barrier to try and break through. I don't know how it's going to go yet, but I'm going to try it. The plan is to still keep filming plenty around Yorkshire, but just to explore the rest of the island as well. More of England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland. So that's the rough plan. But if there's loads of you listening to this and thinking, we don't want that, well, let me know what you do want, because that's the whole point of these videos. I'm also going to try as much as possible to avoid sponsorships. I realise I gave a shout out to this brand earlier today, but in a minimal, non-invasive way, hopefully. Sponsorships can be really useful because you get kind of a guaranteed lump sum for a single video, and that can be really great for covering travel costs and all kinds of things. But personally, I just don't like the way it interrupts the flow of the video. So I don't know if they're totally avoidable, but I'm gonna, if I do take any on, try to keep them as few and far between as possible. And that's pretty much where we're at, I think. Hopefully that wasn't a massive amount of TMI. At the same time, if there's anything else you want to know that I haven't mentioned, you're always welcome to ask in the comment section. And the last thing I want to do, and I hope I'm not repeating myself, is just say a huge, sincere thank you to every single person who's supported the channel this year. Whether you've watched one video, all the videos, whether you're a silent watcher, an avid commenter, everyone who's gifted financially through the videos, through the super thanks, the memberships. I'm so grateful for it, and whether it lasts a lot longer or a little longer, for now it's allowing me to basically do my dream job. Yes, I do spend many hours sat in a dimly lit room editing, but every week I get to go out to places like this, explore something that's new to me, and then share all of that with you lot. Hopefully showing you things that you're interested in, seeing and learning about, and giving you something worth watching. Now we're about to curve our way back around to the viaduct, and once we get there, I'll show you the completed route, the distance we've covered today, the time it's taken, and a little bit of accessibility information. It's hard to resist just standing here for a little bit. Here we go, underneath the Settle-Carlisle Railway. So we could, if we were here for a lot longer, trail the Yorkshire Three Peaks. I've never been to Dent. I guess we've just come from winter scales, and now we're heading back. Oh, well, yeah. Some more of the peaks over there. We're going back to Ribblehead though. So many options for different kind of scales, different sizes of outings around here. Okay, let's get ourselves down back to the base of the viaduct. So I'm going to complete my journey. I'll give it a 5-star. I think it's quite a common route, this one. 4.5 miles, 2 hours 4 minutes. You could probably do that a fair bit faster if you wanted to. As always, I'm kind of spend a few minutes here and there messing about. Oh, it's windy. Messing about with my camera, wading through streams. But it's also a nice route just for a really leisurely walk as well. Not too committing, pretty relaxed terrain, and plenty of nice scenery on the way. In terms of accessibility, I suppose I'm not quite sure the best way to approach that yet. But getting here is pretty straightforward. Plenty of train stations in between Leeds and Carlisle that can get you to Ribblehead. All those trains, to the best of my knowledge, should be wheelchair accessible. And there is also public parking nearby. Not much of it, fairly big lay-by, but I would imagine on a weekend or in busy days in summer, probably fills up quite fast very early in the morning. Please let me know what information I've missed out there. It would be useful though. Now, as one last bonus segment, I've got 1 hour before my train back. I wasn't sure how long that would take. So I guess we might as well check if the station inn is open yet, open for customers. Yes, it is 11:20 in the morning, but it's a historic inn. First licensed in 1879. I did ask for a sandwich, but they gave me a pint for some reason. Probably just because it's Christmas. This place is open pretty much all day as well. They do food, they've got a fire on already, and they even have accommodation if you want to stay. Not an advert, but it's a cool place. And unfortunately no signal to double check if I've missed any questions from YouTube or not, so hopefully I've got everything. If I missed out your question though, I'm sorry. Please let me know in the comments and I will write an answer back to you. And that's going to be everything I can show you today and this year. Thanks again for all your support on the channel this year. Hopefully you've enjoyed this final episode, and fingers crossed, I'll see you next year in 2026.